What up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the MLB Swing for the Fences show here on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel, talking Friday's 13-game slate. Big slate tonight on this Friday night. You do love to see it. Joined by the usual crew today, of course, Steve Boynton, Statsational here on Friday afternoon, breaking down all the games for you on Draft Sheet, of course. And I have a new bucket list item after this morning's events. I would like to one day, Steve, be arrested and thrown in a jail cell in the morning, get out, do the show, and then ship a GPP to end the day. You know, a nice kind of a varied but productive day. Obviously, a shout out to Mr. Scotty Scheffler. Crazy story there. Love to see him own the haters, shoot -5 in the PGA Championship. Fun day of sports. And, of course, we got a lot of baseball to talk about. How you doing on this Friday afternoon, Steve?
Yeah, crazy day on Twitter, crazy day in the RPS Discord. It's been a fun one. Hard to concentrate on work. We were talking about it a bit beforehand. Got my high noons ready for the Friday fireworks. I got 2 in here. 13 games. I think it's the largest MLB slate we've had this season. I think we've had a couple 12-gamers. But, a bunch going on this weekend. It should be a blast. Let's get into it.
Yeah. 13 games, so some of them we will kind of go through pretty quickly. I think only one game with potential weather issues. That's Atlanta, and even that one I think is going to end up being okay. So, yeah, fun night of baseball ahead. Pretty warm most places. Hopefully we'll see some runs up on the board. I think that's pretty safe for a 13-game slate. Stats, how you doing? How's your last week, and how you doing on this Friday afternoon?
Doing well, man. It's been a great week of MLB. We've been up at the top and a winner this week. So really good week. Things are looking up MLB wise. So hopefully we can give some winners out today. But the JBC camp, a first and third and a second and fifth, 2 days in a row. Not bad.
Not bad at all. And anyone who hasn't gotten all the way to the top, that's obviously a lot of what we're trying to do in MLB DFS, especially GPP. So stick with it, stick with the process. Hopefully this show helping you out some of the way. And, hopefully we get all the way to the top, get some RPS logos up top at the end of this slate. 13 games to talk about, though. No more time for pleasantries. We got to jump right into this slate. Seattle and Baltimore. The first game that we'll talk about, we do have one game at the early lock time. That is Phillies and Nationals. Zach Wheeler on the hill for that one, but not on the main slate. So we do start with Seattle at Baltimore. John Means, the lefty, versus Bryce Miller pitching for Seattle. We know, I talk about it all the time on the show. Seattle pitchers in Seattle are just nails, lights out all the time. A little bit of a different story when you get away from Seattle into Baltimore. It is 70 degrees in Baltimore, and you see it in Bryce Miller splits. I mean, just going by something as simple as ERA or DraftKings fantasy points per game. He's been way better at home than he has been on the road. I don't think people take that into account quite enough. And then John Means, who's made, 2 starts now after coming back from a long-term injury, dominated Cincinnati and then struggled against Arizona. I guess kind of the results you expect given how those teams have performed against lefties on the season. Tonight he gets Seattle. Pretty good matchup here, I think, for John Means. He did get up to 89 pitches, even while struggling in that last start. 7,900 for him. He didn't make my write-up, Steve, but I think you could make a case for John Means here. Maybe for Bryce Miller. I do believe in him, but I'm probably not picking on this Orioles team. They have gone colder, right? We've seen kind of the prospects come up, get sent back down. Even Colton Cowser, who had that monster week, really has done nothing in the last month or so. So maybe not as quite a bad of matchup as it was early in the season for opposing pitchers, but still, Bryce Miller didn't make my list. Kind of lukewarm on this game overall, frankly. But where do you stand, Steve, on Seattle and Baltimore?
I'm kind of in the same boat here, lukewarm overall. Means was actually the last pitcher that I cut from my pool. I just kind of want to see it. You know, he's been hurt for what it seems like 2 seasons now. You know, I don't really want to buy in fully, on such a huge slate when I don't really know, right? I think, what do you think? At his best, he's a, 4 probably right now, and his point in his career. So at 8K, you're not really getting a discount. You do get the high strikeout matchup with Seattle, second highest strikeout rate in the split, but they do have pop, So I think he probably has a fine outing, gives up a bomb or two, and does okay. I'm just happy that, as an O's fan, that he's healthy and out there because he's been hurt so much. As for the O's bats, I'm not on Miller too much here at 9K on the road at Camden with this weather. The O's have really, really struggled, especially against right-hand pitching, dead last over the last 2 weeks in weighted runs created plus. You kind of said why. Westberg and Gunnar are kind of the only two guys doing anything right now. We saw Adley hit a couple bombs the other night. So I think if you're playing Baltimore, it's the left-handed bats here against Miller in this park. But not a priority stack for me on this slate. I think Baltimore bats are fine, but I'm just not going there myself.
Makes sense. Elway's Army, yes, good win for the Wolves. Did not see I don't even know what it ended up being, 40-point victory for the Wolves coming down the rails. But that's been a wild series between the Wolves and the Nuggets. Game 7, obviously, on Sunday. And I'm kind of done predicting the games in this series. I'm just, rooting for my Wolves and riding it out and hoping they get the job done. So thanks, Elway's Army, for that. Over to you, Stats, Baltimore and Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, look, you go to the pitching. Means is actually projecting better than Miller is at the cheaper price. So, and that's not really maybe that's not really saying that you need to go out and play Means. It's more of I don't really like Miller at all at the 9K price tag. So of the two, I'll have a bit of Means, not much. I'll be in the single digits on him, and then I'm totally fading Miller. But with that said, I think as far as stacks go, I don't like Baltimore as far as their stacks. I will be playing a bit of Seattle, probably have them in again, probably in the single digits on the offensive side of this game. So when you look at, there's not a ton of there's actually a couple of guys with real high strikeout totals on the slate, and then we've got a few guys with real low. We're right in the middle. This is really what you want to look at is, for the most part, if you don't want to analyze every single prop that's out there, just kind of look at the strikeouts. That's going to get you a fairly decent gauge as far as what projections are going to be and what the sports books are looking at. And both of these guys right around 5.1, 5.2 strikeouts projected. So again, not expecting a whole lot from this game offensively or on the pitching side.
Yeah, I will say one thing going for Means is pitching style. He is so suited for this Baltimore stadium right now with the left field cutout, where the thing you're most worried about with Means is giving up the home runs to right-handed power bats, which Seattle does have a lot of, right? Rodriguez, Garver, Haniger. But man, it's tough to go yard in that stadium against the lefty for those guys. So maybe you should have more interest in John Means than I do. I think he's going to be super low owned. Sabres got him at 3%. He's up to 70 or 90 pitches, 89 pitches in the last start. So I might mix in John Means. If I was playing a bunch of lineups, I do think I'd be over the field on that number for sure. Let's go to the next game on the slate. Chicago White Sox, New York Yankees. Nestor Cortez pitching for the Yankees. He's been Nestorish, I would say, over the first quarter of the season. Kind of how I view him overall, a moderate strikeout arm, capable of some big games, but not a guy that at 9,400 I'm typically going to roster a ton. Now, that could change, obviously, in this type of matchup. The Yankees, I think, are the biggest favorites on the slate, sitting around minus 290. The White Sox have been obviously one of the worst offenses in baseball. I will say, I believe since they got Tommy Pham, I think in their last 21 games, they're 11-8 after starting I don't know what it was, 2-22, something crazy. So they have been playing. I mean, we've made a point of emphasizing that on the show. Not that they're playing great ball, but they have been much better recently than they were before, just pretty much in the month of April. So in May, they have turned it around. Still, I do think Nestor Cortez in play at 9,400. I just not inclined to pay that type of price tag for him myself. And then Mike Clevenger pitching for the White Sox wasn't really in their plans to start the year, and then they just had so many injuries that kind of brought him in there, brought him back to eat some innings. He looked awful in his first start against Tampa, and then I was on Cleveland in that last one, and he pitched pretty good in that one. 5 strikeouts, no walks, 4 2/3, just 1 earned run, got up to 73 pitches. I'm still inclined to think that Clevenger is a pitcher to target against. I think the Yankees 4.8 team total will get some ownership, rightfully so, in my opinion. Probably not going really many White Sox here, but not going to play a ton of Nestor either. What about you, Steve? White Sox and Yankees?
Yeah, I'm just going to continue plugging the Yankees against right-handed pitching. They've been coming through against bad ones, against good ones. The whole lineup's pretty dialed in right now. We're even seeing, Volpe's been really good over the last couple of weeks. We're even seeing Torres kind of start to get going a bit after a super slow start. So as long as these guys are healthy, this lineup is really deep. The cheap catcher in Austin Wells on what, for a 13-game slate, it is a pretty tough catcher slate. So love the Yankees. I think they're going to be my stack on my main lineup tonight. I'm going to go back to them here. Been playing the Yankees probably more than what feels like anyone in the lobby, but they've been so good to me. Against righties, third in weighted runs created plus, fourth in ISO over the last month. Clevenger, like you said, is not the Clevenger of old. The velocity's down. All the estimators are above 5. I'm in on Yanks here. I think Nestor comes in pretty highly owned here at DC. I'm seeing 30-ish% on the slate. He has been awesome.
He's minus 300 with a 2.7 team total against him. People are going to play him for sure.
Yeah. So above 9K, Nestor, that's as a popular arm. I don't love, especially because of the guys around him. Like, I want to play a bunch of Skubal. I want to play a bunch of Reagans. So I'll probably be under the field on Nestor, but have some. I will note, I think someone said in the chat here, his home road splits have been crazy this year. ERA under 2 at home, getting shelled on the road. Maybe he's more comfortable there. I think his career numbers with the Yankees kind of skew that way too. So, I'm fine with him, but I'll definitely be under the field. The one thing I forgot to mention in the O's game real quick, Stowers is starting for the O's. He's a lefty at Stoneman 2K if you want a cheap bat there.
Yeah, good prospect for the Orioles. Honestly, most of those guys so far haven't really come through. We've seen them kind of shuffled up and down between AAA and the minors. But yeah, 2K, hard to argue with that for certainly a talented young hitter. Over to you, stats. Chicago, White Sox, and New York Yankees here.
Yeah, so, start off with the pitching with Cortez. I think he's going to be probably the highest owned pitcher. I think potentially the highest owned pitcher on the slate, which I would agree with you. I'd rather be under that. Not that I don't dislike him in this spot. I do like him, but I agree. I think there's a couple other pitchers here that I might want to take before I'm on Cortez. But, certainly in an advantageous position. We're looking at 6 strikeouts in the betting markets with close to 6 innings pitched. That's kind of where they're looking. They're projecting him, and there's just other guys on the slate that are a little bit better than that. So, so we'll take it from there. But I think you're right with the Yankees as well. They're going to be fairly low owned, which I think is a little surprising. So I don't mind getting over on the Yankees either here against Clevenger. Clevenger's numbers look terrible. The betting markets, he looks terrible. The Yankees are projected for the second most runs scored on the team total in the betting markets right now. So getting some Yankee bats in there, Yankee stacks. I think Judge is, Judge is. I'm going to say it jokingly, but lock to hit a home run tonight. I think Judge goes deep. You can never have. Obviously, there's no locks to hit home runs, but I love Judge here in this spot. He'll be the highest owned Yankee, but I think the Yankee stacks come in like, I don't know, 4 or 5%, something like that, which I think is low. So I agree with you. I don't mind that. I know you're going to be excited about it. I don't mind getting over market on the Yankees bats at all. And just the White Sox side of this game, I think is an avoid all the way around.
Yeah, I would say to me, kind of the jury's still kind of out on Clevenger and what version of him we'll see this year. It's obviously only been the 2 outings. But I would say if I had to bet on any one pitcher to any full-fledged starter who's expected to throw 80 plus pitches, to not make it out of the first inning, Clevenger might be the bet, right? You could just see him just completely imploding in Coors Field, bunch of walks, gives up a 3-run home run to Judge to start the game. And
God, I hope you're right.
yeah, I need to get more
Yankee Stadium, not Coors Field. But
yeah,
right.
I
Yeah.
I need to get more Yankees in my life for sure.
Hopefully it's Coors Field tonight.
It'll feel like Coors Field, maybe. Yeah, I think the Yankees get a lot of runs here.
Well, hopefully not 2024 version of
No,
Coors
not
Field.
2024 Coors. Yeah.
Normal Coors would work out for the Yankees
Yeah.
and Boyd's lineups tonight. Tampa Bay, Toronto up next. Blue Jays decent favorites in this one, sitting around -165. Chris Bassett pitching for Toronto. He was scheduled to go. I think he was scheduled to go a couple days ago in the Toronto Orioles game that got rained out. I believe that was on Tuesday. So he'll make the start here a few days later against Tampa, a team that I've been targeting with right-handed pitchers. Didn't work out last night with Mr. Chris Criswell, but we'll could try it again here with Bassett. 7,200 is if you think he's the same Chris Bassett that he's been the last couple of years, that's a pretty nice discount in a good place to pitch in Toronto against what I think is a pretty bad lineup in the Tampa Bay Rays. So I didn't include Chris Bassett in my write-up, but I do think at 7,200, maybe I should have. Pitching, I think, is pretty deep today. One player that you're probably not considering and shouldn't be is Tyler Alexander, who has struggled this year as expected. His big thing, he's just got a home run issue, I think, is the main thing with Alexander, especially to right-hand bats, which, at least on paper, Steve, plays into this Blue Jays lineup pretty well. I mean, it's pretty much all righties. They're mostly power righties, not kind of speed guys. So that top six, Springer, Bichette, Vlad, Justin Turner, Danny Jansen, Davis Schneider, looks like a pretty strong six-man. Obviously can't stack six guys on the same team, but looks like a good six guys to choose from. So I do like the Blue Jays stack here. Any interest in Bassett, and then any interest in going against him? And interested to hear your thoughts, Steve, on the Blue Jays stack tonight.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting game to try to go power hunting on both sides. Bassett has just gotten wrecked by left-handed bats this season. With low back, the Rays lineup looks a little better. They got Aranda hitting cleanup. He's super cheap as a lefty. You see Alex in the chat here. You get your best hitter back against right-handed pitching. It's going to look better. I think that's how I'm going to approach this game is secondary stacks on both sides. The Rays, I like a couple of the guys that I said. You get the lefty, cheap catcher, Rortvedt starting. And then, Toronto, basically the same approach that you said. Just going to be one-offing and doing secondary stacks with the right-handed power. Springer's cheap. Vlad's under 5K. Bichette has had a rough start to the season, but he's at 4,400. So I'm not full five-manning these teams just because I have five mans elsewhere, but I am leaving more bats than usual in the pool for a game where I'm not full stacking, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I think Toronto makes a really good just one-off plays against Alexander. He's the exact type of pitcher you want to play one-offs against, right? A lot of the damage does come via the long ball. And Toronto seems like a type of team you want to play one-off with, just given the power, but not a team that's going to take advantage on the base paths or anything like that. So I like that approach. I do like these Toronto guys, especially as mini stacks or one-off. Your thoughts here, stats on Toronto and Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I mean, with the pitching, Alexander, absolutely, you are not playing. Just one of the worst projections. I think not the worst, but one of the worst projections on the slate. Bassett's really interesting because his projection in the betting markets is about 2 points higher than where Saber has it now. I haven't looked at what our projection numbers are on him, but the betting markets, you would have him at about 17.6 points, which is a couple of points higher than where Saber is. So real interesting at 7,200. I think he's going to be decently owned in on these slate. I think somewhere in the mid 20s, which is kind of where I am on him. But I almost want to I almost want to take a stand one way or the other on him. And the fact that the betting markets kind of are leaning a little bit strong on him, I almost may want to get over maybe on Bassett. So be a little bit over the market there. And again, on the offensive side, it's kind of a one-sided game for me. I agree with you. I think Alexander's the type of pitcher that we could target. I like these bats on the Toronto side. We've got where do I have them as far as they're right up there in the top 6 as far as team total. So on a big slate like this, I mean, to be up anywhere in the top 10, I think all those teams are really viable to stack. So I do like Toronto stacks here. I agree with you. I think the long ball is definitely in play. And Bassett is a real interesting for me. I think I'm definitely going to have a significant amount of Bassett in my lineups.
Yeah, he's definitely grown on me as well. I will say, yeah, we mentioned it in chat. Steve, you mentioned it. Ray's lineup getting a little bit better, starting to come to life to some degree. I still think Bassett a little bit underpriced there at 7,200. Looks like the markets do agree with that take for the most part. Let's go to Minnesota, Cleveland next. We got Tristan McKenzie pitching for the Guardians. He's been good results-wise, in like 5 straight starts. I still have my doubts about Tristan McKenzie. Just doesn't look that great to me, especially just watching him pitch. Underlying metrics don't look super great. Has been mostly, though, getting the job done, as I mentioned. He'll go against Simeon Woods Richardson, Twins rookie, who started off pretty hot, came back to earth in a big way against Toronto last start, 500 runs over 4 innings. I have my doubts about him, too. He does seem like kind of a unique style of pitching that the league could potentially adjust to quickly. Maybe we saw the beginning of that against Toronto. I do think Cleveland is interesting here. I'm always interested in the Guardians as a stack. They just put the ball in play so much. Can run, obviously. They've got some breakout hitters in Josh Naylor in particular. So, I do like the Guardian side of this one at least a little bit. I don't mind the Twins side either. Again, not a really big believer in McKenzie going forward. But obviously all the Twins that you want to play are all pinch hit risks a little bit to some degree against McKenzie, which is just one lefty in the pen for Cleveland. So not too bad there, but still could be early for some of these Twins hitters. 8 total, more or less a toss-up. Guardians slight favorites. Where do you stand, Steve? Guardians and Twins here.
Yeah. Freaking McKenzie, man. Stack against him every time. He walks the yard and just Houdinis every inning. It's so tilting. Yeah. One of these teams is going to get him, man. God, he's got what? 14% walk rate on the season. That is just absurdly bad. 3.5 ERA by the estimators, 5.13 xFIP, 5.09 Sierra. Twins have been mashing right-handed pitching. I'm scared of the Cleveland bullpen. I'm scared of the pinch hits. I think I'm going to leave Twins in the pool for secondary stacks. Mostly the lefties, Castro, Julian, Larnach, Kepler, Kirilloff is probably who I'll keep in the pool here. And then, no Cleveland for me on either side. I don't want the arms in this game. Twins bullpen is good enough that I don't really want to full stack Cleveland in this spot.
Yeah, well, even just watching McKenzie, you mentioned the underlying metrics. He's walking too many dudes. Stuff doesn't grade out well. And then he'll constantly miss the zone by 2 or 3 feet with curveball or fast. He's just
if you stack against McKenzie, do not watch the games. It's so tilting.
It's so tilting. Yeah, I've done it a lot too. And it seems like you're off to the races every time in the first inning. You're like, oh, this guy's got no control. Stuff sucks once again. And then at the end of the day, he's given up 2 earned runs in 6 innings. For the 4th start in a row. So a little bit frustrating there.
9 straight balls and then gets a double play.
Yeah, stuff like that. Gets old. Stats, where do you stand? Twins and Guardians here.
Well, I guess, what you're telling me is I got to bet the over on McKenzie walks and hits. It's like he's at 1.5 minus 175 to the over, so it translates to about 2.
Yeah, they're total base runners allowed. I feel like would be a good one.
Yeah, and then under on his earned runs.
And under on the 2.5.
You get the SGP where the odds multiply in the good way,
Yeah. Do a really wacky SGP.
An uncorrelated SGP,
exactly. Yeah, he's Well, neither one of these guys, as far as pitching, are going to be making my line. I don't like either one. I think both of these offensive stacks. There's not a lot to talk about. I don't think necessarily in this game because most people are not going to be on it. I do think you could get sneaky here with either side, but I do like the Minnesota side. a little bit better against McKenzie, I do think there's a potential there to get some runs. So I think if you want to play a contrarian, if you're playing a 150 lineups, for sure, I think you want to have some Minnesota in there. I think both of these stacks come in at like, the 1-2% range. There's just so many better options on the board. But I think if you're going to take a flyer, this might be a game that you could do it. I think you can target against McKenzie, and with Minnesota, that's the kind of the side I would lean on. But I wouldn't have a problem with either one of them, just to try to maybe get yourself a low-owned stack and then kind of pair that with some of the more expensive. I'd maybe pair it with the Yankees or something like that with Judge.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Nobody's playing Minnesota yet. They're going to be low-owned. And by the way, Alex, you need an avatar or something other than the A, because I think you might be our most loyal watcher here, or at least most loyal commenter. You're in here every day. We appreciate it, Alex. But yeah, you gotta upgrade that YouTube account, so you get some flair on that YouTube profile picture. That's Minnesota and Cleveland. It's going to be a low-owned game overall. I think that makes sense. All of us do like the Twin side a little bit. I like the Guardians a little bit as well. Let's get to what I think is a very interesting pitching matchup here between the rookie Christian Scott pitching for the Mets and Jesus Luzardo, the Lizard King, one of Stevie Boynton's favorite pitchers. Actually, that's probably an understatement. It's been a rough ride for Luzardo early on here in the 2024 season. ERA sitting near 6. He does not yet have a win on the year. Did miss 3 weeks there with it looked like it was going to be potentially Tommy John surgery, but he did come back on 6 days ago, May 11th. Pitched pretty well against Philly of all teams. Struck out 8 over 5 2/3 innings through 79 pitches. Stuff looked pretty good. So I guess for now, the assumption should be Luzardo's healthy and feeling good. I still have some concerns, but man, 7,400. If he is healthy and kind of normal Luzardo, that is a nice discount, especially pitching at home, where he's been much better over the last couple of years. The Mets do a good job of putting the ball in play, but I think for me here, Steve, the underlying story is it's just too much of a discount for the type of talent that Luzardo is. I'm guessing you're in on him. The pitcher that actually intrigues me more in this game is Christian Scott for the New York Mets, who's looked awesome through 2 starts. 6 2/3, 6 innings, 94, 91 pitches, was striking everybody out in AAA. Big fastball. He looks the full-on part to me. He gets to pitch in a big cavernous stadium in Miami, which I'll say that Scott, if anything's going to get him early on here in his career, I do think it's going to be the long ball. He's a fly ball prone pitcher, but that's kind of what you want to be in just in the modern baseball environment where the ball isn't really flying. Home runs are down across the league, and in a big stadium, and against a team that, for the most part lacks power. So Christian Scott, maybe the ownerships are updated. Yeah, they have been. Sabre had him at 3 or 4% earlier in the day. They've got him up to 12% owned. I still think that's too low for Christian Scott. I like him a ton here. I do like him more than Luzardo. He's a little more expensive, but even taking into that account, I do like Scott quite a bit. So I think both pitchers are interesting. I'm really not going to many hitters in this game. What about you, Steve? Miami, Mets, Lizard King versus Christian Scott.
More than Luzardo. How dare you? How dare you, DC?
Yeah.
No, both these guys I think are going to be way under-owned in the spot. I'm actually leaning on my main team playing both these guys. I think they're both underpriced. I mean, if you're not playing Luzardo at 7,400 in this park against a team that can't hit lefties, when are you playing him? I was concerned, with the IL stint, but he was out for the minimum amount of time and looked really good in that first start back in a tough spot against the Phillies. The velocity was there. He looked great. I'm in on Luzardo. The Mets, like we said, dead last in weighted runs created plus in the split over the last month. They just have not hit lefties at all. I'm going to take advantage of this price tag. This is a 9K talent pitcher sitting at 7,400. And I think the Mets guy is too. So I'm going to be playing both pitchers from this game. Absolutely no bats whatsoever in this one.
I would have bet the last dollar to my name that you were on the Lizard King today, Steve Boyd. I didn't
How
need
do you
you
not?
to look it up.
He's projected under 20% own on this slate at 7,400. That's ridiculous.
There was not a doubt in my mind. Let's go over to you stats for Miami and the New York Mets.
So I like both pitchers here as well. I actually have I took Luzardo over 5.5 Ks earlier today over in the RPS Discord. So for the bets people, they got that play. The projection, he's only projected to get just over 5 innings in this game. So we'll see. I mean, obviously both of these guys can strike out. Batter, they miss bats. 18, or I should say 6 innings is the projection on Scott with 6K, right? 5.9 Ks on both guys. So they're actually expecting better K per inning numbers out of Luzardo. So if we can get and squeeze him out to maybe 6 innings, I think we can get a pretty decent score here in on DK for Luzardo. So projection wise, I do have Scott above, but I'm kind of bullish here on Luzardo tonight. So I will have both of these guys in the 20s, at least 20% plus, I think, on both of them. But I do think if you wanted to get any bit of some leverage, I'm not necessarily playing it this way, but I think of either side of this, you would want to go with the Mets bats over Miami bats. I do think the higher likelihood of one of these teams breaking out is on the Mets side, but I do like the pitchers, and that's strictly if you're looking to play some sort of a contrarian leverage type of stack. So both pitchers here for me, and I'm just giving a little bit of a bump to Luzardo just because I do think I do like the over on my numbers more so than the market does on his strikeouts.
Makes sense. I'm looking at that Mets lineup. I know it's not a great place to hit, but I got some powerful right-handed bats there, and Luzardo he's given up one of the highest barrel rates of anybody on the season so far. So, yeah, sorry, Steve, but I might have to get some Pete Alonso in my life tonight against Mr. Luzardo. I'll enjoy my 3 strikeouts, and you can get back into the winning circle.
I will too.
All right, that's New York and Miami. We go to what appears to be the lone potential weather game of the slate: Braves and Padres. I do think this game plays. I'll put it out there right now, looking at the radar. Now, I don't know what our resident master Google or weather guy over at RG says, but I think this game is going to play despite if he has an orange rating on it. So I'm going to proceed as if it does. Max Fried and Matt Waldron going to do battle on the hill here. Fried, who, everybody was calling him washed up after those first 2-3 starts of the year. Not so. He has been awesome in the last 4 starts. Some pretty tough matchups too in the last 2. Lefties against the Mets, they don't strike out much, so we got only 5 strikeouts in that one. I think he's taken no hitter. 2 of the last 3 starts, he hasn't even allowed a hit at all. It just kind of ran into a pitch count, so he didn't get to complete the no hitter against Seattle and the Mets, and then was decent against the Dodgers as well. Did throw the complete game shutout against Miami 4 starts ago. He gets San Diego here. I don't love the matchup, which is kind of why I'm off him. Just a team that does a great job making contact. Fried struggles with strikeouts anyway. So, I think there's going to be a lot of balls in play here, and that can lead to some high variance starts, which, that's kind of what got Fried, frankly, in those first couple ones. It was just, hits strung together, some seeing eye singles, bloops, that type of thing. See something like that happening to him here. I do think he's a fine play at 8,800. I'm going elsewhere. And then Matt Waldron, the sometimes knuckleballer for the San Diego Padres. I continue to target this guy frequently. He's had several blow-up starts already this year. Just not a believer in him or his pitching style. And this Braves team, I know they got owned by Javier Assad a couple nights ago. But I knew I could tilt Steve with that one. But I do think, they've got a chance to get to Waldron here. Good luck floating that knuckleball past Azuna and Olsen and Acuna. I'll bet on those guys. squaring one up and taking them deep into the Atlanta summer night. So I'm on the Braves bats here. I think Fried's fine. No interest in Waldron. And like most nights, I really don't have a ton of interest in loading up against Max Fried. Go over to you, Steve. Hopefully you're over your tilt. Your thoughts here, Braves and Padres.
I'm not over it. Yeah, Fried, I think so I was concerned about this game earlier. It looks like the weather's improving pretty rapidly there. I think that we might get a clean game here, which makes me have a ton of interest in Fried at 8,800. I think people are going to be scared to click him. Right now, I see 10% ownership. Like, I'm playing Fried over Nestor, I think. Padres been super feisty against right-handed pitching. They have sucked ass against lefties for about a month now. Let me check. Yeah, 29th in weighted runs created plus, 28th in ISO. Just absolutely no pop against lefties. I could see Fried going deep in this game, having a good outing here for under 9K. And yeah, with the weather improving, I think I'm gonna take a chance there and have Fried in the pool. The Braves at this point, I don't know what to do with them. I keep trying to make them work in good spots, and they just keep flopping. And the prices haven't come down. It's actually kind of annoying. Acuna's back in there after the reset, giving him a day off. I'm gonna be needed. Someone's gonna have to talk me on to Braves here. I actually don't like, for a 13-game slate, I don't like that many offenses. So like I have 5 mans available. And the Braves, Sabres got them at 5.1 runs on the slate. I think that's the second or third highest that Sabre has here. So maybe Stats can talk me on to some Braves.
Are we going to get just back to you, Steve, real quick. Are we going to get lower owned Max Fried than we should have because of weather concerns here? I think that seems possible.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if there's no weather, there's no chance he would be 10% owned on the slate. Under 9K in this spot at home as a favorite against the Padres with a 3.5 team total. So yeah, like I think I would rather have my Fried ownership like where the field is at on Nestor, and then have Nestor at 10% for my lineups. So I'm going to be heavy on Fried, lower on Nestor in that like price range.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have an official meteorology degree, but I do have Google. It's really good at showing weather radars. And I'm seeing the rain is like, seriously, it's like 200 miles away south of Atlanta mostly. And it looks, I mean, I know we're still an hour and a half, even more than that, I guess almost 2 hours prior to this game, but this game looks pretty damn clean to me. So if we're going to get like someone like Fried's ownership cut in half, might have to jump in on that. I love the numbers you gave about the Padres. They don't strike out, which obviously is a problem, but I still might take that ownership discount if it looks like it might turn out that way. Stats over to you, Braves and Padres.
Yeah, I don't like Fried nearly as much as Boynton does here. Again, I like to go to the betting markets. Look at the K prop here. It's 4.5, heavy juice on the over, translates to about 5.1 Ks. But Fried in the projection, if you project out the betting markets, he comes out to like 15.4 points as opposed to Cortez, which is up at like 19.1. So I just think you're getting a big edge with Cortez here as opposed to Fried. So I'm going to be pretty low owned on Fried. I'll have him a little bit in the mix for me, but not a whole lot. And I don't mind getting under the mark. If he's 10%, I don't mind being under on that one. So it's kind of be, I'm going to go the opposite way of Steve on that one. Waldron just not going to play at all. And yeah, I mean, the Atlanta stacks, I think we pretty much, that's kind of been the theme every week here. We're like, okay, we could get the Atlanta as a contrarian stack. They're going to be a contrarian stack again this game. One of the higher team totals on the board. I think they're the second highest team total or third highest team total on the board here tonight. And yet they're just not going to be owned. So, I mean, if you want to play talent and keep giving it a shot, I guess, you can get on there. I'm not going to try to convince Steve into playing them though tonight. I don't have a ton of them myself. I
think people just have Braves fatigue at this point. They keep busting.
I think yeah. I mean, I think it's understandable. I'm looking at looking at what I have now. I'm actually, you know what? Now that I look, like as I ran it, if I keep it the way it is, like what I ran before the show started, I'm probably going to be over on these guys because I've got like as a main stack. Well, yeah, I didn't have as many in my mains, so I have them about all the guys like high single digits, which I think is still over the market, getting in the high single digits on the Braves. I think they're going to be a lot lower owned than that, so I don't mind that. I'm not going to get crazy on it for sure, and I'll have adjustments to make before we lock, but yeah. Same old story. I don't mind being over on the Braves, but I am going to be under on Fried. I just don't like I don't like how he's looking in the betting markets for me tonight.
Yeah, Waldron so far has only given up 6 home runs in 8 starts, so kind of a average mark there. My guess is that moves up a lot as the season goes on. I think he's going to be a very home run prone pitcher, and maybe tonight I got to get some of these Braves in my lineup, specifically the power.
It always happens. It always comes back to getting some Braves.
Yeah, Friday night Braves. Yeah, I've lost money on worse endeavors than the Friday night Braves. So I'll probably try to get them on one of my 4 main teams tonight. Let's get to the second half of this slate. That's through 6 games. We got 7 to go, so we got to keep moving. Hit the like button if you're here. Got a good crew watching. We do appreciate that. And then, yeah, join us over at Run Pure Sports. Obviously, heart of baseball season. We got NBA. We got NASCAR, auto racing, golf, MMA, WNBA starting up. Our guy, Rubio Dimes, who's the master of every niche sport there is, can help you out over there. DC 15% off your first weekly or monthly payment. All right, let's get to the next game on the slate, Oakland and Kansas City. Oakland's starting pitcher here has kind of been in flux throughout the day. It looks like they have, decided on something called a Mitch Spence, who appears to be the starter for the Oakland A's. Not anyone that I would fear. We do know the A's have really 2 awesome arms at the back of their bullpen. Urseg is good. And then, Mason Miller, we don't really get to talk about him on the show, but good God, this guy is, pitch for pitch, clearly the best pitcher in baseball right now. I don't even think it's close between Mason Miller and anyone else. But if you're on the Royals stack like I am tonight, you're not going to see those guys if you're in contention, right? Listen, if the Royals get shut down and lose this game 3-2 or 4-3, you weren't winning shit with that stack anyway. So I don't think that's too big of a deterrent for me playing KC. I do like them quite a bit. Steve, I know you're a fan of our friends over at Ballpark Pal. They've actually got Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City rated as the overall best park on this entire slate. Now, it still is one of the worst parks for home runs, but it's good for everything else. Strikeouts, doubles, triples, just base hits in general. And so I do think that leads to pretty interesting Royal stack for me. Looks like it should be Spence and then Mueller, who's not any good. And then obviously a full-on bullpen day for Oakland. Nice thing about KC is the guys you want at least don't really get pinch hit for. Kind of an old school team. So I think most of their guys, at least at the top, really most of the lineup should be safe from a pinch hit in this one. And then Reagans, who has been he's been really up and down this year. The overall numbers honestly don't look that great, but we know he's capable of big games. We saw the very mediocre Christian Javier put up 8 strikeouts against Oakland yesterday. If Javier can get 8, Reagan's certainly capable of double digits. A's do have one of the higher strikeout rates against lefties on the season. So I like Reagan's here. No interest in any Oakland pitchers. And then I love the KC bats. I don't mind the power bats against Reagan's. The Rookers, J.D. Davis, Langoliers. I think all those guys are pretty good one-offs, honestly, against Reagan's. I don't think I'm going with the full A's stack, but definitely an interesting game here. 8.5 total. Royals sitting at -200. Steve, what do you see, Royals and A's?
Yeah, A's kind of had a little heat check in Houston and just got dominated by the pitching staff there. Maybe a bit of coming back to earth after they had a hot week or two with the bats.
For a while, it was like a 3-week stretch where they're like number 1 in home runs, number 1 in runs. There's just no way that was going to last.
Right. So I think that continues to kind of crash back down to earth here. Reagan's coming off the odd start against the Angels, who actually have been pesky themselves lately with their new look lineup. He just kind of has starts where he just doesn't have it. It's happened 2 or 3 times this season. I know it happened in that Baltimore start here, but awesome bounce back spot here at home against Oakland. He's dominated tougher opponents this season than this. All of his estimators are way below his ERA. Like you said, they're minus 200, so good win chance as well. I'm on Reagan's over Nestor. If you had me pick one in this range, like between Nestor, Reagan's, and Fried, I think Reagan's is my favorite of the 3 for sure. And then on the bats, no bats for me on the Oakland side. I like the Royals here. I put in the playbook, they kind of predictably had a sleepy West Coast swing with the bats is what, pretty much happens to a lot of teams. You go out and play Seattle and, you just kind of don't hit for a week. But, they get back home here against a bullpen game. I think the Royals bats get going a bit in this homestand. So I'm in on the Royals bats, in on Reagan's here.
Same page with me. What about you, Stats, Royals and A's?
Yeah, Reagan's is projecting out as the top pitcher on the slate projection wise tonight. I just looked at it. I just wanted to see because he was projected at 8 strikeouts. It's now down to 7.7. So that number has come down. The market has been coming in on his under 7.5 as opposed to where it was earlier in the day, like literally an hour and a half ago when I checked it. So there is some money coming in on the under, maybe give you a little bit of pause there on his strikeouts, but I do think he projects out to be the best pitcher on the slate. I think Kansas City is in a great spot for stacks tonight, and you could stack the top of their lineup. I like them 1 through 5 there, but there's one thing that you said, DC, that I like. I think you could actually play some of the Oakland bats in this game and even play them as a secondary stat. As much as I like Reagan's, I think if you're playing 150 max, I think having them as a secondary stack, not a bad option. I think we can get a couple of home runs potentially, even if we get a lot of strikeouts. There's a possibility Reagan's gets a ton of points here, or gets us in the 20s, mid to 20 to 25, and we still get maybe a one-off player for Oakland at a cheap price. Gets us a dime. So I don't mind that as a contrarian kind of leverage type of play, is getting sprinkling in a little bit of the Oakland lineup as well.
Yeah, sometimes you just watching enough baseball, like Rooker, Langoliers, JD Davis, those 3 guys in particular, like they're going to be trying to pull the lefty Reagans. That fastball comes in there. They might swing and miss, but their approach at the plate is going to be able to try to pull that ball over the left field wall. So I do think those Oakland guys make for good one-offs if you're on any team where you don't have Reagans. All 3 of us do like Reagans quite a bit tonight, though. Let's get to a slate, two crusty lefties here. Andrew Heaney, Tyler Anderson. I do think Heaney is in play on this slate. He's had 5 solid starts in a row, all between 12 and 20 fantasy points, which is kind of the anti-Andrew Heaney. He's normally all over the place in terms of his results. But he does get an Angels team that obviously has a weaker lineup with no Mike Trout. They've been okay recently, better than I expected after they lost Trout. They do get Luis Rengifo back for this game. But yeah, Andrew Heaney at 6,600 I think is in play. And then Tyler Anderson has been he had the awesome year for the Dodgers in 2022. Was absolutely horrible last year, and then now this year somehow is back to, at least so far, the good version. I don't really buy it with Tyler Anderson, but I'm also not super high on this Rangers team. Semien, Adolis Garcia, Jonah Heim, I think are the 3 best plays there. Don't love the Angels side either. Taylor Ward, Joe Adell, I think remain good plays. What about you, Steve? I don't have a ton from this game, Texas and LA.
Yeah, I think the Rangers come in the highest owned team on the slate, which I love to see, especially when they're facing a lefty.
Kind of crazy.
Say it every single time they face a lefty. This lineup cannot hit lefties whatsoever. People continue to jam them against lefties for some reason. 28th in ISO against left-handed pitching. They did add Grossman. I think Grossman is like the only bat I'm going to play from the Rangers side and just hope that they get a bunch of ownership here. The Angels have been hitting of late ever since they kind of mixed up the lineup. They called up a couple guys. Joe Adell's hitting for some pop. Pilar has been good against lefties. That's no surprise. And Kyron Paris is 2,200 at second base. So I think I'm going to use the Angels as two, secondary stacks, one-offs. I do have some Haney in my pool, but at these price tags, the way that the Angels are hitting, I think that I'm going to include them in the pool for secondary stacks. The Rangers bullpen doesn't scare me whatsoever. So it's Angels, minis, some Haney, and no Rangers outside of Grossman for me.
Yeah. This is the third or fourth year in a row where Tyler Anderson has had a below average, or a whatever you want to call it, below or above average, but giving up fewer home runs to right-handed hitters than the league is. I think when people see Tyler Anderson soft tossing lefty, they assume right-handed power hitters in play. I think that's just a natural assumption, but hasn't really proven true. Texas did not make my write-up today as a top stack. Sounds like that may be a contrarian take. What about you, Stats? Where do you stand, Rangers and Angels?
Yeah, so I mean, Haney projects out higher than Anderson, so and they're getting 1,200 savings. So I mean, he's definitely in play, and he'll be in my lineups. The Angels have made me some cash here this week, so they've been the
you got to be on the Angels here.
So I can't stay off them. I do like some Angel stacks tonight, just like you said, as hot as their bats have been. I don't think they're going to be very high owned. So so I do like the Angels, and I do agree with you as far as Texas goes. Listen, they're the highest team total on the board. I feel like Steve's going to have to. You got to bet they're under on their total, right? I mean, if you're
I did this morning
all the way. Oh, you did it already. See, yeah, Steve. As soon as I posted the team totals, like Boynton was quick to go in there. Yeah, everyone's crazy. Texas doesn't hit lefties, so I just like that you put your money where your mouth is on it. And but I do agree with you. I like being under the top stack of the day, which I think they're going to be the top stack of the day on a slate like this. There's no reason to play Texas. Certainly, if you're playing one lineup, three lineups, 20 lineups, and once you get to 20, maybe you want to sprinkle in a few. But when you're in that 150 builds like I do, definitely want to get underweight Texas here today.
Yeah, hopefully Texas doesn't bury us all because we're all underweight on this Texas lineup. Next game up is Milwaukee and Houston. I've talked a lot about this Milwaukee team. I kind of think they go as Christian Yelich goes. They were one of the best teams in the league hitting wise against righties. He went out, kind of cooled off, and then they picked it back up since he's been back in the lineup. They go against Hunter Brown, who had frankly kind of an infamous start back on April 11th, negative 24 DraftKings points. Has been okay since then. Certainly a nice bounce back. I think he's given up about the same earned runs in the 5 starts since then than he did in that one single game. I still don't think he's a pitcher that you need to avoid. His ERA still sits at 8. And I like this Brewers team against him, specifically Yelich, but I think Jake Bauers is interesting. Joey Ortiz, we've talked a lot about these Brewers. He's not a lefty, but he is a player to watch. I think he's a kind of a favorite of mine right now. I know he's down in the 8 hole, but you'll probably get him at like 1% ownership. I think he's a fun play, Turang running wild, of course. So I do like the Brewers. Listen, not one of my top stacks, but I definitely like them more than their 3.75 team total would indicate. I assume they're going to be very low owned. They're not super cheap or anything like that. So I like the Brewers a little bit. Freddie Peralta, a pitcher I've been in on this year. He's been good for the most part. No Jordan Alvarez, which is certainly a nice bump for Peralta. It does have me a little bit more interested there, but he is the most expensive pitcher on the slate, and I don't know if I want to attack Houston with the most expensive pitcher of the night, Steve. So again, another game, 13-game slate. I'm probably not going to have a ton of this game. I think my favorite plays do come from the Brewers, though, in the bats at least, led by Christian Yelich. Steve, your thoughts? Astros and Brewers.
Yeah, it's about time they gave Jordan a day off. I think he's played every single game so far this season. Really struggled over the last week or so. They pulled him early in the blowout last night, so kind of saw this coming that he kind of needed a day to reset, a la Acuna. Same story with the Brewers. They're kind of like a mini version of the Yankees, I think, against right-handed pitching. Like the Yankees just smash right-handed pitching. I'm going to continue to play the Brewers against righties. And this is a gettable one here. Brown's not as bad as his stats have been so far, but the struggles with walks are real. The struggles with powers are real, or is real. And this Brewers lineup has popped throughout. I know we talked, it was either last Friday or the Tuesday show, DC, where I was like, I can't figure out the Brewers outfield. It's like whack-a-mole, and it happened all week. We had the Bowers Grand Slam, and then the Chourio game, and then the Frelick game back to back to back, and I missed each one. So that outfield continues to be annoying, but they're
producing as a whole. I mean,
Yeah, and Ortiz, like you said, the guy they got in the Burns trade from the O's has been hot as well. So I'm in on Brewers here. Not playing Peralta just because Houston just doesn't strike out at all. And up top, I want to play Scooball over him. For me, this game's all about the Brewers bats.
Yeah, good to see Saber with a higher total for the Brewers than the markets have. Again, I really don't get that 3.75 number.
Yeah,
for the
take
Brewers.
That over 3.5 team total too.
It's not like the Astros bullpen has been anything to write home about either. So I don't really understand it, but maybe a good spot to take advantage of some low ownership numbers. I'm seeing the Brewers, every single person in their lineup, Saber has below 6% owned, including, our guys, Yelich, Turang, Ortiz, all those guys right around 5%. So looks like a decent spot for this Brewers offense. Where do you stand, stats? Brewers and Astros.
Yeah, it's probably not good for us because I kind of like the Brewers stacks as well in this game. So that's never that's never a good sign. With the pit, sometimes this happens. I do like Browns over today on strikeouts, but I'm not in love with Peralta. I agree. When you look at the at his strikeout projections at that price, I just don't. I don't really love Peralta today. I mean, he's still projected for 6.2 strikeouts, and Brown is projected at about 5.6. And like I said, I do like him to get over. I like him to get 6 or 7 Ks on my projection. So I do like that over for Brown. But I was curious, and then you answered it where you thought like the Milwaukee stacks were going to come in. I mean, they're kind of middle of the pack. You guys are talking about the team total. The team total's got it projected right around 4 runs for Milwaukee, which is better than halfway or the midpoint on today's slate. But and they're expensive as well. I mean, a lot of the bats are kind of pricey. So I do like them in this matchup against Brown. Don't necessarily like the Astro bats in the game. So gonna be very light on the pitching, maybe high single digits, maybe even up to 10% stacks on the Brewers to get myself over the market on the Brewers. And I'll be pretty low on Houston as far as their bats. Not gonna have much there.
The 8-9-1-2-3 wraparound stack for the Brewers a little bit. Frelick, Ortiz, Chourio. You get some cheap bats at the bottom, and then not Frelick. I don't get the 2 home runs. He's still kind of the one that I don't really want to play. I just kind of think that's a little flash in the pan. So Ortiz, Chourio, Turang, Contreras, Yelich. 8-9-1-2-3 would be my number one Brewers stack if I was just playing one stack of them. Let's get to Boston and St. Louis. This game, total toss-up in the market. Complete pick'em. Total sitting at 8. So just a middle-of-the-road game here, which makes sense. Brian Bayo, Kyle Gibson in a pitcher's park in St. Louis. Will be 75, 80 degrees, humid, so we'll play a bit better than it has been for most of the year. And I really don't have much from this game, Steve. Tyler O'Neill, who's been the best hitter on the Red Sox pretty much all year. does get the revenge game, and I have a sense that he probably isn't a huge fan of the St. Louis, front office management. So I don't know if you take any stock into a very focused Tyler O'Neill. Maybe you can make a case for him, but I don't see much. What about you, Steve? We got to keep it moving. So Red Sox Cardinals seems like a quick one to me.
Yeah, just kind of ignoring this game on the slate, just kind of pretending it doesn't exist. I don't have interest in either arm. Maybe some cheap one-offs is about all I'd go on the bats. This is a no-go.
Yeah, I feel like you'll be pretty safe if you just avoid this game. What about you, Stats? Any hot takes for us, Cardinals and Red Sox?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't like either pitcher. I mean, the one thing to note is the markets do project Gibson to go fairly deeper than most pitchers on the slate, but just not a lot of strikeouts for the amount of innings that he's projected out. So don't really love either pitcher in the game. The bats, I agree with you. Not strong on, maybe some one-offs, maybe taking a Devers or something like that as a one-off. I like the Boston side a little more here than St. Louis. So a couple of one-off spots for the Boston lineup, but don't really love stacks in this game either.
All right, Detroit, Arizona up next as we go to the West Coast. Ryan Nelson and Tarek Skubal been arguably, probably not arguably, a top 5 pitcher in MLB this season. And if you even take it back to the last couple months of last season, Tarek Skubal is real. We've been on him all season, Steve, including even last season, dating back to the last couple months there. He does get, at least on paper, one of the very toughest matchup for lefties here. Going into Arizona, they have crushed lefties on the season. I do think it's worth noting with Arizona that a lot of that damage came against the likes of Austin Gomber and Ty Block and all those horrible lefties from Colorado, especially early on in the season. They just bombed those guys. So Arizona's numbers probably not as good. Like, I guess I would say their numbers for the season are not going to hold up the same way that they've shown so far. But nevertheless, this is a good offense against lefties. Skubal 10K even on DraftKings. I was kind of leaning toward not playing much of him, just given the numbers that Arizona has put up. But it sounds like you might go a different direction. Ryan Nelson pitching for the Diamondbacks. I did take a good look at him today. Was kind of hoping to maybe play him against Detroit, who is a offense to target, no question about it. But came away kind of hesitant, even at 6K for Ryan Nelson. Don't think he's the worst player in the world. But talking to Steve, Skubal, I think, is the big question here. How much Skubal you got in your lineups tonight?
All right, so Sabres got him around 15%. I'll be over that just because, I'm not playing as much Nestor. I'm not playing any Peralta. It's not the best spot in the world. We've talked on this show multiple times how Arizona's lineup is, much better against left-handed pitching. They struggle against righties, but, it's a bet on talent spot. We've talked about that a couple times.
Yeah.
These, especially the high-end left-handed pitchers, we've talked about Reagan's in this spot too. Skubal, guys like this can dominate any lineup. I love that he's low owned here. Definitely going to be overweight. We have the roof closed, which also helps. And yeah, like you said, I was going to bring up a lot of the numbers against lefties for Arizona has come against a lot worse of talent than Tarek Skubal. So yeah, I'm in on Skubal. No bats except for maybe the lefties for Detroit. The issue is the good ones are all super expensive now. So probably no bats at all in this game.
Over to you, Stats, for Arizona and Tigers. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Skubal's going to be one of my most important pitchers, I think, today. I've got him. I got his strikeouts over 5.5. I thought the number was a little low. I mean, you're paying a decent amount of juice on that over. At least a couple hours ago, I haven't looked at it now, but so over the 5.5 strikeouts, I do like. I've got him projected as one of the highest pitchers on the slate. You're paying up for it. I know how good Arizona's been against the lefties. I think you guys said it correctly, though. They haven't faced a caliber lefty like Skubal, so I think he's the type of guy who can break the slate, get you a bunch of strikeouts, get deep in this game. and be the highest scoring pitcher on the night. So I will definitely be over the market. I think they're looking at maybe 15 to 20%. I'm going to be well over that. So he's going to be the guy I'm probably have my most leverage on tonight. I can answer that question that we usually do at the end of the show now. So School will be my most important pitcher. And yeah, I agree with you. I'm obviously going to be more interested in the Detroit bats. They are getting a little pricey, but I don't have much either side. More Detroit, but not really looking at the bats in this game. To me, it's all about Scooble.
Land of 501 says if you play Scooble tonight, you shouldn't be playing MLB DFS. So, Steve, stats. I will be.
I've got a first, a second, a fourth, and a fifth this week. I might screw it up, but
with much worse plays than Tarek Scooble.
Yeah,
I'll be anticipating your letters of resignation from the MLB DFS tweet.
Trust me,
the Land of Man has spoken.
I have problem. I have no problem quitting.
Cincinnati and the LA. That'd be nice. Why don't you go ahead and quit? Let some of us win the cash.
He's got to be kidding.
LA Dodgers.
He's just screwing around.
Yeah. Up next, James Paxton, Frankie Montas. Dodgers big favorites in this one, sitting around minus 200. I certainly get it on the Dodgers side. Frankie Montas, it's been a hot minute since we've seen him pitch well at the big league level. Did have one good outing against Arizona, but the other three have been pretty brutal for Montas. He's been injured. Just a pitcher, in my opinion, you want to target against, especially with the Dodgers team. You know, it's the same story with the Dodgers. It's tough because I see a lot of people, go to the back half of the lineup on the big total. Well, the reason they have a big total is because Betts, Ohtani, Freeman, Smith, and Muncy and Teoscar are all great hitters. It has nothing to do with, Gavin Lux and Outman at the bottom of the lineup. Like, those guys haven't done anything. So I think that's a little bit of a misconception. And then Paxton on the other side. I know the last two games have been pretty good. I am not at all buying into James Paxton right now. He is a pitcher to target. There's no doubt in my mind on that. Even guys like Madison Bumgarner in his final seasons still had at times two decent outings in a row in terms of the actual results. So I know the Reds have a low team total here. I get it. They haven't hit much. High strikeout rates against lefties. But I personally can't play James Paxton. I do think he's going to get at least a little bit of ownership, maybe 10, 15% at 8,400. Not for me. Unfortunately, you can't, at least on paper, run against him. Now, I'm not sure Ellie De La Cruz cares how many stolen bases James Paxton has given up. I like to see Steve. You're finally coming around. I remember the beginning of the season. You're in the chat. You're saying, "Oh, Ellie De La Cruz, he can't make contact. This guy strikes out every time."
He wasn't making contact.
And he was still striking out all the time, and he still is striking out all the time, and he's going to keep striking out. But when he gets on base, he runs, and when he makes contact, he hits home runs. Ellie De La Cruz, fantasy monster in any matchup. I know this isn't the ideal one for him. You like him swinging from the left side, but in a matchup like this, you get him at no ownership whatsoever he appears to me to be the highest upside player on the slate, pretty much on a nightly basis, almost no matter who he's facing. And he's 2% owned tonight, Ellie De La Cruz. So it's just egregiously low for me.
Not after last night. Not after
last night was insane. We'll talk about that game.
Yeah.
He stole 4 bags and could have had more.
I was making this one before the season started. During the beginning parts of the season, he's the best athlete to ever grace a baseball field, and he's 22 years old. And I don't care if his strikeout rate is 5% too high. This is the dude you want to bet on a nightly basis. It's not always going to work, of course. It's MLB DFS, but man, get a lot of Ellie De La Cruz in your lineup. I'm just trying to be over the field on this guy every night. If he's high owned because it's a great matchup, okay, then I'll play a whole ton. And if it's low owned like tonight at 2% because it's a bad matchup, which I don't even think it's that bad, again, give me 10% compared to the 2% of the field. So anyway, Ellie rant over. No interest in the pitchers for me here, Steve. What about you? Paxton, Montas, Dodgers and Reds.
Yeah, I did come around. I was texting you last night. I took some Ellie MVP at 40-1 on FanDuel. I think that's just way too high. He stays healthy, he's gonna break the all-time steals record. You can tell that he just wants to steal every time he gets a base.
He's on pace for 112 steals and like 37 home runs.
Yeah, and if he does that, it doesn't matter if the Reds are shit. He's winning the MVP. So 40-1 on FanDuel last night. I haven't checked today. Everyone else was like 12, 15. So it was definitely an outlier there. Check that out. Yeah, I'm with you on Paxton. I'm like trying to find a place to fade him. I'm not sure if this is the spot. The Reds have been so bad outside of their home ballpark. Paxton 2.58 ERA, hilarious 6.05 Sierra, and an xFIP 5.6. He's got
probably the biggest gap of any pitcher who's thrown as many innings as he has.
Yeah, in the entire league. He's got a slate worst strikeout rate, slate highest walk rate. He has more walks than strikeouts in the season. I'm playing some Reds here. You know, they haven't been great, but man, like I'm not missing the James Paxton, 1 1/3 inning, 7 hits, 6 run outing. I'm not missing that. So I'll be playing some Reds, like the Dodgers side too. Echo your points on the Dodgers back half of the lineup. I do like to play back halves of most lineups, on purpose, but I actively avoid it with the Dodgers if I can. So I'm on bats on both sides here. In the betting market, I took the first 5 over in this game. I think, we see runs on both sides here. I don't think we have the lineup yet. I know India is a bit banged up, but love this game on both sides for bats.
Yeah, we'll see if India's in there. No Reds lineup yet. Steer, Stevenson, Candelario, and of course, if you're playing 3, 4, 5 Reds, I mean, you got to get Ellie in there, right? He is really the straw that stirs that drink, in my opinion. So I would include him in there, despite on paper not the best matchup. Stats, your thoughts here, Dodgers and Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the pitchers, I don't love Paxton in the spot. I don't really like a lot of these guys in the 8K range. I kind of like going up to 9K plus, like up in the Reagan's territory, Cortez, Skubal. I like getting up there, maybe not all the way to Peralta. I would kind of leave him out. And then I just think there's so many good or decent cheaper options that I'm kind of avoiding hit. So I just don't like his projections in the betting markets at all. I mean, look, I agree with you. I think the number, I think 2% would probably be low considering what he did yesterday, De La Cruz. But yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, if you can get over on him anytime, again, he's one of those guys. We talk about it. You want to pay up for your one-offs. That's certainly a guy who can do a lot of damage all by himself, as you saw last night. So he's a guy I'd never mind paying up for and having in a one-off. But I really don't like Cincinnati stacks here either. Although I didn't like him last night and it wound up getting me less. I had 13% De La Cruz last night and my original builds were 20. I was just like, I got to get rid of all these Cincinnati plays. And then they go.
The cash line was 95 and he had 44.
He was 95 in cash?
No. The cash line in GPP was like
the cash line was 95
points,
and he had half of it. Oh, yeah, and he had half of it. Okay, I was like, because he was only like 6 or 7% owned, I think, in the GPPs, and I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I actually lowered my my Cincinnati project. They were the worst team on the slate projection wise, but yeah. Anyway, I know we're up against it here. Paxton. I'm not going to have much of Montas as well. Not going to play, so I'm pretty low on the pitchers in the game, and even the bats. Don't really like the Dodger bats here. I just think we've got some better options now. The Dodgers projected fairly high on team total, but I'm going to be looking elsewhere and just not pay up as much. I mean, I'll have some in my 150, but not one of my top stacks.
All right, brings us to the last game of the night, San Francisco and the Colorado Rockies. Lefty Kyle Harrison pitching for the Giants. The Giants are kind of the same page for me as the Mariners, where love playing these starters at home for the most part, kind of avoid them on the road. Awesome matchup for Kyle Harrison against a light-hitting Rockies team who has really struggled against lefties overall on the season. I like Kyle Harrison there at 8,200. And I like Ryan Feltner too. I don't think he's much better than a league average arm, but I do think he is that. I do think he's roughly league average. He's actually somehow been better in Coors Field than away from home. I'm not expecting a huge game from him, but he is the cheapest starting pitcher on the slate if you don't count the opener Mitch Spence for the A's, who I personally don't. So I do like Feltner here and Harrison, and I don't think I have any bats at all from this game on my teams. Last game of the night here, Boynton, Giants, Rockies. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I'll be quick. My big interest here is Feltner. He's my favorite pitcher under Luzardo on this slate.
Yep.
Been pretty unlucky this season, 5.2 ERA. Estimators are under 4. You don't get 5,500 pitchers with estimators under 4 very often. He gets, the biggest park upgrade imaginable going from Coors to San Fran. He's not going to have a 350 BABIP all season. The Giants have no pop right now, 26 in ISO last 30 days, 29 for last 14 days. I think he's a shot, or I think he's worth a shot here. If you're playing Braves, you're playing Dodgers. I think Feltner's the best play in the game.
Stats. Talk to us about this game, Giants and Rockies.
Yeah, don't disagree with you. I am going to be 10 to 15% Feltner. I think the price 5,500. You just got to get him. If you're playing 150 lineups for sure, I don't even mind it in a single entry if you want to throw it in there. But I think his projections in the betting market, they basically compare close to like I said in the last game, Paxton. He's only a point worse than not even a full point worse than Paxton's projections. And look at the savings that you're getting there. So yeah, I agree. Don't really love the bats in this game. I think Feltner is a real interesting play. Harrison on the other side, I'm going to have about 10%. I'm going to have both of these guys in the 10 to 15% range. I do think Harrison is a decent play as well. He's projected up 17.5 points for me in the betting markets, 5.7 Ks we're looking at. Of course, Feltner, not as many Ks projected, but 5.7, good enough for me for the price that we're looking at on Harrison at the 8,200. I think it's a pitching game tonight. And again, 10 to 15% for me on both of these pitchers.
All right, 13 games. Long show today. We've been going an hour and 20 minutes, but we will still do the fun stuff at the end of the show. We'll run through it quickly. We'll do favorite stack, favorite contrarian stack. Steve, are you ready for us? Favorite stack, favorite contrarian stack.
Yeah, my favorite stack's the Yankees. I feel like that was an hour and a half ago. But the Yankees are your fave. I hope they come in low. They'll probably be contrarian too. So I'll go with the Yankees as favorite stack. Contrarian, I'll go with the Brewers. The two teams that I just keep stacking up against right-handed pitching.
Makes sense. Stats, your favorite stack and favorite contrarian stack.
Yeah, Steve sucks because he took money. So I'm going to go. I don't want to drag it out. So I'll take, but I'm going to take the Yankees as well. And then the contrarian. Let's just keep doing it. Let's take Atlanta as a contrarian stack. Like, eventually they're going to pop. So I'll take the Yankees in Atlanta.
Yeah, we got to pop eventually. My favorite stack on the night is the Royals, who might be a little bit contrarian as well against that bullpen game for the A's. And then favorite contrarian stack, I got to go with the Reds against James Paxton. Just not a believer in him. Most important pitcher, we already know stats. Skubal, right? You said is your most over the field pitcher, so we got that out of the way. Steve, you might have the same answer, but go ahead. Your most important pitcher on the night.
Yeah, I'm going to be well over on Skubal, but I'll also be well over on the Lizard King, Luzardo at 7,400 will be my pick.
I'll throw in one that I think all three of us like, Ryan Feltner, 5,500 for the Colorado Rockies against the Giants. Like his chances there. Home run calls. Steve, give us a home run call on the day.
Home run call. Well, I'm not going to use. I'll go with Rizzo. He's been good at home. 4,200. Anthony Rizzo bomb tonight.
Stats got a home run call for us.
Yeah, I mean, you let me get Judge, huh, Steve? So yeah, I'm going to take Judge is the obvious one. So. I know Judge is definitely going yard, but give me the guy who we keep talking about I said Atlanta. Acuna's going to finally get one here. It's been a while.
Yeah. That would be nice.
I hope you're right.
Yeah. I will go with we'll just go try to tilt Steve Boynton over there. Mr. Pete Alonso takes the Lizard King deep in Miami. And finally, overall favorite hitter on the slate. Over to you, Steve.
Go with the guy who's kind of been one of the main cogs for the Yankees offense being so good. Anthony Volpe leading off has been awesome, especially of late. So I'll go with Volpe as my play of the day.
Stats, your play of the day.
It's a good one. I'm gonna stick with the Yankees, and I think Judge scores more, but I'm gonna go with Soto.
Hard to argue with Mr. Juan Soto. I'm going to stick with my man Christian Yelich against Hunter Brown. Should be 2-3% owned tonight. He's expensive, I get it, but big believer in Yelich at the moment. Hopefully he doesn't get us the one night, Steve. Yelich just had the most tilting game ever, but did rebound since then, and I do like his chances against Hunter Brown and this Astros bullpen. All right, that'll do it for this show. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We do appreciate it. Hit the like button on your way out. No show on Saturdays, no baseball show anyway. We do got a UFC show, but we will be back Sunday morning. I think me and Mangone breaking it down for you guys. Appreciate it. As always, for Steve Boynton, I'm Draft Sheet. Also, for stats, I forgot your stats. For stats, Boynton, I'm DC. We're out of here.